Never stop reading this book of the law. Day and night you must think about what it says. Make sure you do everything written in it. Then things will go well with you, and you will have great success.
Welcome to this devotional time, the word for today, and with you, Pastor Orlando Granados.
God bless you all. And here we are ready for our devotional time, the word for today. And yesterday we were talking about how to store up treasures in heaven. And many believers, they think it is not important to store up treasures in heaven. And many believers also, they try to avoid this topic or skip it. But the word says to us in Matthew 6, 19 to 20, do not store up for yourself treasures on earth, where moth and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. So this is Jesus talking to us, and he's telling us that to make treasures in heaven is more important than to making treasures on earth. And this can give us a certain amount of understanding of the importance of having treasures on heaven. We can see people that they even they steal, they waste their time with the purpose to obtain treasures on this earth. And Jesus is making a comparison, telling us it is more important to have treasures on heaven, because over there in heaven your treasures will be safe. And on this earth, they're not going to be safe. Nothing that is on this earth is secure. But whatever we do with eternal character, no one will steal that. No one will take that away from you. And we can see that Jesus is making an emphasis that we must make treasures on heaven and not on earth. So we can see that is a very important thing for all believers. And it is a commandment. Everything that Jesus had said, it is a commandment. Jesus is not giving you a choice. Do you want to do it or not? No, Jesus is actually telling you. He's telling us we need to put our eyes on the stuff, on the things that are on heaven and not on earth. It is a commandment. So we must understand the deposits in heaven, they are made according to our deeds here on earth. We're not talking about salvation here. We're talking about rewards that we will get in heaven. And maybe there's someone that will say, well, I'm just happy with the idea of just going to heaven. Obviously, it is quite an important thing. It is a great blessing and a great joy to be able to go to heaven through our faith in Jesus Christ. But however, to make treasures or to store up treasures in heaven, it is important. And Jesus said it. It is more important, the treasures on heaven. But what are treasures on heaven? Treasures in heaven, it is an incorruptible inheritance, uncontaminated, reserved in the heavens for us. So let me talk about you a little bit about moth. And this is something that will damage garments or clothes. And when we're so focused on doing treasures here on earth, it will damage our cloth of holiness. Moth will eat up the cloth of holiness of believers. And the richness or the treasures in heaven, they are secure. In Hebrew 11:27, it says that Moses, he regarded this grace for the sake of Christ as a greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead for his reward. And this was in Hebrew 11:26. And we must look up on the things on heaven, because obviously with a human mindset, we're not going to be able to understand this. Because since we haven't seen how things in heaven are, and we only have seen what is here on earth, then our eyes, they just focus on what they can see here on earth. But we as children of God, with His wisdom and faith, we can put our eyes in the correct direction. Yesterday we said that there were more than 13 ways of storing up treasures in heaven. And one of the ways is by extending the kingdom of God here on earth. This is very important. And every time you do this, and you do it with a correct attitude, you will store up treasures on earth. And also you will be blessed here on earth. Another way to making treasures or storing up treasures in heaven is by making disciples. I want you to understand that particular things that will produce more treasures in heaven than others. And one of these things is to win souls and make disciples. It is a powerful way to store up treasures in heaven. It's because the will of the Father is the salvation of man. And to make disciples and win souls is to be focused on the things from above, and it is to follow what is in God's heart. Our Heavenly Father, what He loves is actually the souls of humankind, to the point that He actually sent His only begotten Son so He could die for us. Matthew 24:29 to the 24 to the 29. Then the man who received 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid, and I went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here's what belongs to you. His master replied, You wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well then, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I return, I will have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. For whoever has will be given more, and then will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. Another way to store up treasures in heaven is by being productive. Each of us, we have a talent, abilities that God has given you for the benefit of the kingdom, for the benefit of the church. Each of us, we have a function within the church, and we must carry on according to those abilities that we have. When a believer doesn't use what God has given him or her for the expansion of the kingdom, that believer has become a negligent believer. Everything that God has put on our hands, it must produce something. And we will be accountable to God for all the things that we have done, not only with our talents, but also even with our own words that came out of our mouth. And sometimes people say, how come that person he has so many abilities and so many talents? And maybe because that other person has produced a lot. And that's why it's added more to him or her. You know, in Exodus, one of the commandments is not to be envious of the possessions of your brothers or sisters. And many people, they even divide churches, or they cause problems within families or at workplaces, because they even attack friends or family members because of their envy, because they are envious of what these other people or what their friends, their pastors, their brothers or sisters have. But they don't ask themselves, how come they have this and I don't? With a humble heart. And the reason is very simple, because whatever God had placed on their hands, they are not using it. So the enemy take advantage of this. Instead of serving God with fidelity, with faithfulness, what they ended up doing is being envious of what others have. And that will carry on another set of consequences, because it's a sin. So if you're not doing anything with what God had placed on your hands, then consequences will come. One of the requirements that we have as believers is to be productive. If someone that is not making disciples, is not winning souls, that person shouldn't be called a minister or be called to the ministry, because that goes against to the principle of the calling from God. Whatever God puts in our hands, it must produce. Nowadays, we can find many people that they didn't do much in the church, and nowadays they call themselves pastors, and they want to jump over principles, important principles. And just like I said yesterday, many of them, the only reward that they get is the praise of men. And the blessing of God, we must remember, is the one that will add joy and richness to your life. If you're faithful in the little things and you're not faithful on the little things, then a consequence will come to your life. Because He's a just God and He's a faithful God. And the laws or the principles that He has established, we must follow them, and they should be respected. So if you want to be productive and store up treasures in heaven, you must make your talents and your abilities produce a fruit. And be aware that you will be accountable for that talent to God. What has God put in your hands? Maybe it's the ability to work with children, or to win souls for God. There's no limit. Sometimes we are the ones who limit ourselves. But whatever talent that God has given you, remember that you are able to multiply it 100 times, because it's with God's strength and with His wisdom. The ability that you have, maybe is music. Start serving God in the praise or the worship team. If your ability is evangelizing, go out with the evangelistic team and win souls. If your ability is to teach the Bible, get a group of life and start doing a discipleship group. But many people, they just want to do or show their talent, showcase their talent, when they can have actually a platform where everybody could see them. But what is certainly true, if that we are faithful with what we have, God will add more talent. That's why we find people in churches that they are doing many things and they have many abilities, because they have been faithful and serving the Lord with those talents. So whatever is your calling or your abilities, put them to the service of the Lord, and then you will be able to store up treasures in heaven. There are other ways that you can store up treasures in heaven. For example, Psalms 1, it says, "Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord and who meditate in his law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do, prosper. So, we must learn and we must understand that we should not stand up and lie about other people or speak wrong about other people. If we want to store up treasures in heaven, we must walk in the right path. And everything will be prosper here on earth, but also in heaven. God bless you today.